I'm a food scientist, so I care about all of the innovations that we are doing. A lot of research that we have done, it should be meaningful for our sustainability. Sometimes it's very difficult for the food companies basically to answer the consumer demands, right? Because consumer would like to have instant solutions, while in the food productions, we need to think about the raw materials, which takes time to grow, takes time for the innovation. So how you see our relationship between academics, food industries, and also consumer?
There's a lot of good science across the New Zealand food ecosystem. The challenge is, how do you put the needed new investment into the science and commercialize it? And then the art is, how do you do that fast and quickly, where you know there's going to be a bunch of failure, but you then invest in the right horses that seem to be running faster than the others. And I think this is the opportunity with New Zealand today is we can go faster, we can back more horses. And it's not to say that our legacy industries aren't good. They're great. They're a platform for us to compete with, but we need to build on them.
You need also someone that can translate the research outcome for the commercializations, right?
Absolutely. We need more commercialization efforts, bridging deep science in our universities with what our consumers around the world want. You know, we've been very good at selling traditionally to Anglo markets that speak and read English. Over the last, 40 years, we've been forced and done very well at building up some brands. Zespri is a great example, across Asia Pacific for our perfect fruit. But there's a lot more to do, and consumer preferences are changing very, very quickly. They're different, and they're in very varied cultures and languages. So the art becomes, how do we work with commercialization partners, both in New Zealand and then across our global network, to speed up the commercialization process? And I think this is one of the key pieces of the puzzle.
I think trust important, collaboration, so people respect the ownership from the IP and how we can build the business as such for the advantage for our sustainability, food production and food system.
Totally agree. If we're just selling butter or lamb, it's a product that fundamentally we export, and it's a supply-driven mindset. But all the points that you're raising, if it's a demand-driven mindset, it's all about what people want and understanding what they need, or if it's a want. And then it's trying to use new models to supply that. And I think the opportunity is, it's not just about exporting a product, it's about packaging up IP under a brand and licensing a solution. And it's a completely different business model. And that business model is challenging to people who have only exported products. And that's okay. And so I think there's needed help to transition those type of legacy mindsets to what's needed today in the 21st century.
We also need to have a traceability too. Because if you're selling your IP, your value, we need to trace also where the product come from, how is the origins from all of the raw materials, that we can be proudly sell the product, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a consumer in Japan or China or New York, and they are paying a premium for that brand experience, and inherent in that brand experience is a story about sourced from one of the purest countries, whether on land or water in the world, and that country happens to be New Zealand. The opportunity for all of us is, how do we prove and make sure that experience is true? How does that consumer know that story is true? How do they know it's worth paying for? And I think you're right, there's so much opportunity in traceability, authentication. There's both a technology angle there and data, and an AI generative space, but also in branding, storytelling, and behavioral design.
It's quite amazing now with the big data. Basically, we can also communicate with the consumer overseas. The consumer can also see our productions. I'm very, proud of your work because you have been integrated all of the connections between food industry, university, CRI, government, and all of the regulations that for export and import too. It is a very tough work too because we need to understand about those complexity. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Alex. So it's very nice to meet you. And then hopefully we grow more and more in the coming future.
Thank you.
Maybe less than 10 years from
Yes,
now.
I'm up for it.